There's a kind of trader no one talks about. You will never see his screenshots on Twitter. He never posts a Lamborghini photo. He doesn't sell courses. He doesn't argue in comment sections about indicators or strategies. Most people in the market don't even believe he exists. And yet, after 20 years, he quietly walks away with millions. I first realized this type of trader existed on a night when the market was doing what it always does during chaos, screaming. Price was moving fast, volatility was high, social media was on fire. Everyone had an opinion, everyone had a trade, everyone was convinced this was the moment. But one account I followed for years said nothing. No chart, no commentary, no excitement, just silence. That silence bothered me more than the noise, because I had spent years believing that success in trading had a certain look: visibility, confidence, certainty, a loud presence. I thought winners had to be seen. I thought money demanded attention. That night planted a question that took me years to fully understand. What if the most successful traders aren't loud, but invisible? Years later, I met one of them, not through a conference, not through a fund, not through social media, through a quiet introduction, a short conversation, and a realization that shattered almost everything I thought I knew about what winning in markets actually looks like. He didn't call himself a trader. He didn't describe strategies. He didn't talk about setups. He didn't brag about returns. He spoke about time, about patience, about staying alive long enough for probability to work in your favor. He told me something that sounded almost boring at the time. I don't need to be right often. I just need to still be here. That sentence stayed with me far longer than any technical lesson I've ever learned. Because when you step back and really observe markets, you start to notice a strange pattern. The loudest traders burn out first. The most confident voices disappear the fastest. The ones chasing recognition almost always end up chasing losses. And the ones who survive? You rarely hear their names. This trader had been operating for over 20 years. Different markets, different cycles, different crises. Dot-com bubble, 2008, flash crashes, black swans, crypto manias. He never tried to predict history. He simply learned how not to die inside it. What shocked me wasn't the money. It was the absence of drama. No heroic stories, no overnight success, no emotional roller coasters, just consistency, boring by design. He once told me that anonymity wasn't an accident, it was protection. Attention creates pressure, he said. Pressure changes behavior. Behavior destroys edge. At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. Like most retail traders, I thought success meant validation, that if you were doing well, people should know, that money should be visible, that confidence should be displayed. But markets don't reward confidence, they punish it. And anonymity does something subtle but powerful. It removes the need to perform. No audience, no ego to protect, no identity tied to being right. Just decisions. Clean decisions. This is the part most retail traders never consider. They think the hardest part of trading is finding a strategy, or mastering indicators, or predicting price. But the real battle happens somewhere else. It happens when no one is watching, when there's no applause for discipline, no reward for patience, no recognition for sitting out. And that's exactly where anonymous traders build their edge. They don't trade to prove anything. They trade to survive. They don't chase excitement. They avoid it. They don't need to be seen winning, because they already understand what winning actually costs. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. If you need attention, the market will eventually use that against you. The trader who survives 20 years without being noticed isn't hiding. He's opting out of a game that destroys most participants long before money ever becomes the problem. Most retail traders don't fail because they lack intelligence. They fail because they misunderstand what the market is actually testing. Early in my career, I believed the biggest mistake traders made was technical, wrong entries, poor exits, bad indicators. I thought if someone just learned more, studied harder, refined their system, everything would fall into place. That belief didn't survive reality. What really destroys traders is not a lack of skill. It's the slow erosion caused by exposure. Exposure to noise, exposure to opinions, exposure to expectations, both their own and everyone else's. The anonymous trader understood this from the beginning, even if he couldn't articulate it in the language we use today. He told me once that every time he became visible, his performance suffered. Not immediately, not dramatically, but subtly. He would hesitate where he used to act. He would justify trades instead of executing them. He would feel the need to explain decisions that didn't need explanation. And that pressure, he said, didn't come from the market. It came from being watched. Retail traders rarely talk about this because most of them have never experienced it. But once you attach identity to outcomes, trading stops being about probability and starts becoming about self-worth. That's when mistakes stop being educational and start becoming personal. That's when holding losers feels like defending your reputation. That's when taking profits feels like admitting you could have done better. That's when risk management feels optional, because the real risk isn't the trade, it's looking wrong. This is where most traders quietly break. They don't blow up in one dramatic moment. They erode. One oversized trade to make a statement. One refusal to cut a loss because this can't be wrong. One impulsive entry because silence feels unbearable. The market doesn't need to trap them. They trap themselves. The revelation for me didn't come from a chart or a book. It came from watching how differently this trader behaved under the same conditions that destroyed everyone else. While others felt urgency, he felt distance. While others chased clarity, he accepted uncertainty. While others needed answers, he waited for confirmation. He wasn't faster, he wasn't smarter, he was quieter. And in markets, quiet thinking survives where loud conviction dies. What he had built over 20 years was not just capital, it was insulation. Insulation from emotion, insulation from social pressure, insulation from the constant need to react. That insulation allowed him to do something most retail traders never learn how to do: nothing. Doing nothing when conditions are unclear. Doing nothing when everyone else is excited. Doing nothing when the market is begging for impulsive decisions. That's the real turning point most traders never reach. They believe growth comes from more action, more trades, more signals, more opinions. But the anonymous trader learned the opposite lesson. Longevity comes from restraint. The market rewards the trader who can sit through boredom without manufacturing opportunity. It rewards the one who understands that patience is not passive, it is selective. He once told me that if he looked back at his 20-year career, most of his profits came from surprisingly few decisions. Not constant engagement, not endless activity, just a handful of moments when the risk was asymmetric and the market was offering something rare. Everything else was protection. Protection of capital, protection of mental clarity, protection of his ability to keep playing. That's when it became clear to me that anonymity wasn't just a lifestyle choice, it was a strategic advantage. By removing himself from the spotlight, he removed the need to perform. And without the need to perform, every decision could be judged by one thing: does this increase my probability of survival? Not today, not this month, but over decades. That question changes everything. It changes how you see risk. It changes how you see opportunity. It changes how you define success. And once that shift happens, trading stops being a battle against the market and becomes a quiet negotiation with yourself.
Most people misunderstand about anonymous traders is this: they are not hiding because they are afraid. They are hiding because they understand how fragile edge really is. Edge in trading is not a strategy, it's not a setup, it's not even a system. Edge is a behavioral advantage that survives repetition. And the moment behavior changes, edge disappears. Retail traders spend years chasing techniques without realizing that the real differentiator happens after the strategy is known. It happens in execution, in consistency, in how a trader behaves when nothing interesting is happening and when everything suddenly is. The anonymous trader learned this early. He told me that the market never takes your money directly. It first takes your attention. Then it takes your patience. Only after that does it take your capital. This is why visibility is dangerous. The more visible a trader becomes, the more external inputs he absorbs. Opinions, expectations, praise, criticism, all of it subtly interferes with decision-making. What begins as sharing ideas slowly becomes defending identity. And identity is poison in probabilistic environments. Markets do not care who you are. They do not reward consistency of opinion. They reward consistency of behavior under uncertainty. The anonymous trader built his entire approach around protecting that behavior. He avoided platforms that incentivized commentary. He avoided conversations that pulled him into prediction battles. He avoided environments where being right mattered more than managing risk. Not because he lacked confidence, but because confidence has a shelf life. He understood something most retail traders never fully accept. The more certain you feel, the more vulnerable you become. One of the clearest examples of this came during a major market dislocation, a fast, violent sell-off that wiped out years of gains in a matter of weeks. Social media was filled with panic and heroism at the same time. Some traders were calling the end of the system, others were calling the bottom with absolute certainty. The anonymous trader did neither. He had already reduced exposure weeks earlier, not because he predicted the crash, but because conditions had changed. Liquidity was thinning, volatility was compressing unnaturally, risk was becoming underpriced. To him, this wasn't a signal to act aggressively. It was a signal to step back. When the sell-off accelerated, he did something that looks counterintuitive to most retail traders. He stayed flat. No catching falling knives, no proving bravery, no need to do something. Only after forced liquidation cascades appeared, when price moved faster than reason, when volume exploded without direction, did he begin to engage, and even then cautiously. What allowed him to do this wasn't superior analysis, it was emotional neutrality. Because he had no audience, there was no pressure to perform, no fear of missing out publicly, no embarrassment in waiting, no need to explain patience. This is where insider thinking differs radically from retail thinking. Retail traders ask, what will price do next? Professionals ask, is participation justified right now? That difference seems small. It's not. One question seeks certainty, the other seeks asymmetry. The anonymous trader understood that the market offers very few moments worth engaging with, and countless moments designed to drain attention, energy, and discipline. He optimized his entire process to avoid those traps. Limited screen time, predefined risk, long periods of inactivity. Most retail traders can't tolerate this. They confuse inactivity with stagnation, silence with missing out, restraint with fear. But the anonymous trader saw restraint as capital preservation, not just financial capital, but psychological capital. Because once mental capital is gone, no strategy can save you. This is why after 20 years, he didn't just have money, he had clarity. Clarity that allowed him to operate without urgency, without attachment, without the constant internal noise that destroys most traders long before their accounts ever hit zero. And that is the real secret behind anonymous success. Not hidden indicators, not secret setups, but a structure designed to protect decision quality over decades. By the time most retail traders ask how to trade better, they're already asking the wrong question. The more useful question is quieter and far less exciting. How do I stay the same person when the market tries to change me? The anonymous trader didn't build his process around maximizing returns. He built it around minimizing distortion. distortion of judgment, distortion of emotion, distortion of behavior. He understood that markets don't defeat traders with complexity, they defeat them with pressure. Pressure to act, pressure to react, pressure to be someone. So his application was never about copying what worked for others. It was about designing an environment where his worst instincts had less room to operate. He traded smaller than his ego wanted. He waited longer than his impatience allowed. He exited positions not when they felt comfortable, but when risk began to outweigh clarity. And perhaps most importantly, he structured his life so trading wasn't his identity. That detail alone saved him millions. When your self-worth isn't tied to a single trade, a single day, or a single opinion, decisions become cleaner. Losses become information, wins become temporary, and neither has the power to derail you. Most retail traders try to fix discipline after it breaks. The anonymous trader prevented discipline from being tested unnecessarily in the first place. He avoided overexposure. He avoided constant engagement. He avoided environments that rewarded excitement over restraint. And slowly, almost invisibly, that approach compounded. Not just in money, but in confidence that didn't need validation. That's the part people miss. Real confidence in trading is quiet. It doesn't denounce itself. It doesn't need to convince anyone. It simply shows up, executes when conditions align, and disappears again. If you want to apply anything from this story, it's not a technique, it's a shift in posture. Stop asking how to win faster. Start asking how to last longer. Stop trying to be impressive. Start trying to be consistent. Stop performing for an audience that doesn't care if you survive. Because the market doesn't reward those who want to be seen. It rewards those who can wait. After 20 years, the anonymous trader didn't walk away as a legend. He walked away intact. Mentally, financially, emotionally. And that might be the highest form of success this game offers. If there's one lesson worth holding on to, it's this. The traders who make it aren't the ones who conquer the market. They're the ones who learn how not to be conquered by themselves. If this way of thinking resonates with you, if you feel like the market has been louder than your own judgment, then this channel exists for you. Subscribe to Staro Trading if you want fewer shortcuts and more clarity. Leave a comment if you've ever felt the pressure to perform instead of trade. And remember the principle that guides everything we do here. Master yourself, and the markets will stop controlling you.